the Sess Daily Podcast. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. And thank you guys for subscribing. We got a collab here with Sess Daily Podcast and In Dark Places Podcast. And I guess all three of us are co-hosting a podcast tonight, which is very exciting. With Tracy and Junebug, how are you two doing tonight, man?
Doing good, doing good.
Doing great, man. Been a wonderful day.
Yeah. What do you guys want to talk about, like with UFOs and stuff? Do you two have like a personal stories of ever seeing UFOs and stuff?
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of stuff, probably close to 100 things I can't explain. Nothing real close range, though. It's always been a downer for me. I want to see something up close and personal, but everything I see is always lights moving in the sky and stuff like that. It looks like a satellite and it takes it off and goes the other direction.
I actually did have a close encounter, closer than I wanted. It was 2018, around 2:30 in the morning. I traveled for work quite a bit. I was on I-40 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was actually traveling east coming into Albuquerque. And if anybody's ever been out west that way, especially in Albuquerque, it sits in like a bowl. The interstates drop down into Albuquerque going east and west. I was going east, and as I was dropping down the hill, I could see something over the city. And it was probably 2 miles off, but it was big enough for me to see. And I'd been through there many times, and I've never noticed aircraft or any kind of airplane taking off or landing. So it kind of caught my attention, and I thought it was odd. Then this thing started getting closer to me and closer and closer. And then all of a sudden I realized that I was not seeing an airplane. I was seeing something else. It was triangular shaped. Probably if you had 6 tractor trailers parked nose to tail in a triangular shape is about the size of it. So it was a good size, whatever this was. It flew directly over I-40 so low that it was lower. There's not really any trees. There's nothing really to give to scale. I'm going to say it was less than 1,000 feet up and probably no closer than 500 feet up. So, I mean, it got to the point to where I slowed down to almost a stop on a major interstate, be it, yes, it was 2 something in the morning, but there was traffic. Because the first thing I was thinking is, I know I'm not the only one seeing this because there's traffic going in both directions. So I'm going east. It's flying be north right in front of me. And I've got my head out the window looking straight up at it. It's like I can almost touch it. It's that close. This thing makes absolutely no sound at all. And I don't want to say it was like a hover, but it was like it was floating. And as it got just north of the interstate, not even an eighth of a mile, it doesn't slowly stop and come back. It's coming across and just stops and then starts coming back the same way it came. Well, I literally just got my phone that day and I haven't even messed with it. And I'm fumbling around trying to figure out how to record this thing. And I'm looking out the window and looking at my phone and looking out the window. Well, by the time all this happened and I realized that I'd seen that it wasn't an airplane to the time that it got out of my sight was probably within 2 minutes was the entire time I saw it. And it was a solid 2 minutes. It never left my sight. But the whole time I was fumbling around with this phone. I dropped it in the floor. I'm picking it up. I'm weaving over across the guardrail, and I'm doing everything I can to try to figure out how to record on this phone. And then it's gone. And that is the only time that I know that was my close encounter. Now I've seen other things in the sky, like Junebug said. I've seen lights way up there, but I can't tell the difference between a satellite or something else that's way, way up there. But that was close enough. And until that time, I was one of those guys. Yeah, I was always interested in UFOs and things like that. But from that day, it was a definite. Now, when I say that, could that have been government made? Absolutely. I don't know that it wasn't from us, us being humans or our military. But all I know is what I saw, I've never seen before. I've never seen pictures of it other than in UFOs. So was it out of this world? I don't know. But what I did saw or what I did see, I couldn't explain what I saw.
Yeah, man, that's an amazing story. You guys, I definitely got to tell them the radio station podcast gonna be on Sunday. I definitely am gonna tell them guys about you, and they should definitely have you guys on, man, because you guys have way better UFO stories than me. Mine is just me being a 10-year-old kid and seeing like a gray thing up in the sky, and it was like weird. It was like traveling like really fast. That's all I remember.
Well, I mean, that's not uncommon. I mean, they're talking, these things go thousands and thousands of miles per hour and they turn, 90-degree turns on a dime where, the centrifugal force would pop your head off on a normal, aircraft that could do that. But Junebug has a great story. Now, I mean, about one being hit by a train. I mean, how do you keep that quiet?
So what happened with that, Junebug?
You heard about that one, man? Back in 2002, CSX train collided with a UFO. It was near Paintsville, Kentucky. They were on their way into the railroad yard one night, and they saw 3 lights around a bend of the track close to the river. And as they got close, 2 of the lights went down next to the river. They got down close there. The other light stayed on the tracks, and the the train slammed into it. He tried to stop his brakes, but he couldn't stop in time. He slammed into it, and there was significant damage to the 2 locomotives and I think 3 of the coal cars behind. And they radioed the incident in to dispatcher in Florida, of all places, and they told them to just go on into the railroad yard in Paintsville if they could maneuver the train. And he took his time and kind of crippled and hauled it into the Paintsville station. And they were met by a bunch of men in black type figures. They came in, kind of quarantined everybody away from each other so nobody could talk. The conductors and the timekeeper and stuff, they couldn't have any kind of contact with each other. And they surrounded the trains with big white tents and I guess experimented, checking for radiation damage or whatever. But we looked for witnesses for years. Starting in 2013, we've been trying to figure out a witness and can't find anybody. It's all covered up. And we went to the site and pretty much had it pinpointed down to the track that it happened on, everything, the gravel pretty much. And couldn't find any kind of witnesses, but we found this one old dude. His best friend was the yardsman at the Paintsville railroad yard. And he said, yeah, man, absolutely. This was a true story. It happened. I saw it. I saw the men in black there and everything. But the friend would never give us his information. He wanted to keep it secret. He said he wouldn't disclose the witness and stuff. But they were best friends. And the guy called me 4 or 5 years ago to let me know that guy died. The yardsman had died of a heart attack. I think he's like 67 years old. And he still never would disclose his name. So we couldn't ask his family or anything, any kind of personal follow-up questions or anything. But that was a good one.
Oh yeah, man, that's actually pretty close to here. It's about a 35-minute drive.
That's wild.
Yeah, dude. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Point Pleasant. Do you think that the Mothman's possibly an alien?
Yeah, we're big fans of Mothman, ain't we, Tracy?
Yeah, actually, we've been planning on they're having their festival on September 18th and 19th there in Point Pleasant, and we're planning on making a trip. Which that's Point Pleasant's only 20 minutes from me, so I'm not that far away. I never really. I always viewed Mothman as maybe a cryptid more than an alien. So now that you brought that up, I've never really thought of it in that sense. So you've gave me something to think about. I don't really know. What do you think, Jimbo?
I was the same. I was along the lines of cryptid, but yeah, that could be alien because of Indrid Cold was spotted there by the UFO, and it was like a week or so before Mothman's sighting started appearing. So he could have been there on the same UFO with Indrid Cold. It's hard to say.
I never thought of it that way. Really?
There's been the Man in Black was also seen there. I don't know if you guys have been to the Mothman Museum, and if anybody hasn't, I would definitely suggest going to it. It's definitely a great thing.
Yeah, Junebug is kind of a quasi semi celebrity at this thing. I mean, he gets recognized when he's up there.
Yeah, I've been I'm one of the Men in Black there every year at the festival since 2012. I think it was my first festival, and I went every year as a Man in Black, and they all know me and stuff. Hey, Junebug, what's going on?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that festival, it's cool though. It's a cool, good little time.
Yeah, I've never been to the festival. I've always, worked or something's went on, but this year I'm free. So I know September 18th and 19th, I'm going to make a trip. So
yeah, man, it's definitely a great town. And it's pretty close to Hillbilly Hot Dog, ain't it?
It's not far, right up Route 2. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's a great place as well.
Yeah, that's it's about 20 minutes from me, if that.
Yeah, man. I've been wanting to go back to Point Pleasant. I went back in 2015 when I was like 16, 15.
It's the way they explain it to me, the little town of Point Pleasant probably don't have, I mean, at the most, maybe 2,000 people in the entire town. And then all of a sudden, these 2 days, there's 35,000 people in this town,
Yeah. It's kind of creepy how people describe the Mothman, and the statue is supposed to be an exact replica of what people see.
Yeah. And I mean, it really looks like a moth. It's what, 7, 8, maybe 9 feet tall. Red eyes. The wings resemble a moth's wings. Now, when you go to that festival, asking as somebody that's never been, do many people go out to the TNT site, or is it even still there?
Yeah, it's still there. They have bus tours out there. They'll take 3 or 4 buses a day, and you got to book it well in advance.
Really? Okay.
They sell out.
Yeah,
I did it a couple of years ago. Let's see, 2018, and I think it's it's my first time doing it. In I think it's 2018, and it's pretty cool just to see the history. This is where he was first sighted and stuff like that, and they just pointed it all out.
Right.
It's cool.
Chase the teenagers in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that festival. That's good times and good family environment stuff. Bring the kids.
Good deal.
Do you think there's a connection between Bigfoot and aliens and UFOs? Oh, I actually asked the Bigfoot researcher who I had on last night, and he said he doesn't think there's any connection.
Well, that's funny you asked, because that was Charlie Raymond. I don't know Charlie personally, but I do know of Don Neal, who was high up in the KBRO and was actually good friends with Don Neal. We had many, many conversations about Bigfoot. Unfortunately, this is not one of them, but I do hear of certain people say, well, that's why it's so elusive. It can disappear. It can shapeshift. It can do. I just don't get that vibe from Bigfoot. I just really don't. I think it's just an unknown North American ape that has just been undiscovered. And you always have the skeptics like, well, why haven't we found a body or this and that? Well, I've hunted and fished all my life, and I've never seen a dead bear laying in the woods either. I've never had any encounters or anything that I thought was an encounter of a Bigfoot. So I'm not really a skeptic. The way I say to everybody, I've never seen a Bigfoot, never even thought I've seen a Bigfoot. But if you look at all of the reports that are out there, and there's thousands of them, I think people are seeing something. I don't know what they're seeing, but I don't think they're all made up, and I don't think they're all bears. People generally know the difference between a bear and a 9-foot bipedally walking creature. Do bears walk bipedally? Absolutely, but they're clumsy. They got a wobbly gait where you never have this. You when somebody sees Bigfoot or you see video of maybe a Bigfoot, there's no clumsiness to it. Where bears are clumsy. Now, I have to go back to, and I keep going through my mind that people are seeing something. You can't discredit all of them. I mean, they're not all fake and they're not all bears.
I tend to go along with Tracy. It's just some undiscovered ape. But we had Stan Gordon on the show one time, and he makes a pretty compelling argument that he's an alien.
Yeah, he does.
Tons of weird lights being seen out in the forest around the Bigfoot and everything. It makes you wonder.
I don't get that vibe though. I just don't get the vibe that he's interdimensional. I don't get the vibe that it's from out of this world. I mean, I may be totally wrong. I mean, I'm just a dude sitting in a studio right now who's never had an encounter. So I don't really know, but I'm just going by what I feel when I see videos or read reports. I just don't get that vibe.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't the gorillas like discovered like back in the 40s, the 1940s?
The mountain gorillas, yeah. I mean, and how long were they here before, it's not like they just appeared in the 40s. I mean, they'd always been here, but there's things that are, I'm sure there's things that's not been discovered yet. And I'm not talking about teeny tiny mosquitoes, I'm talking, there's animals out there that's just, they're so elusive. There's so few of them and they just haven't been discovered.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. There's probably different types of like dogs and everything.
Sure. And I have a feeling that once one is discovered, they're going to find out that the DNA of it is so close to us that it's going to be almost scary. Now, I do have a theory, as I do think that the government knows there are Bigfoot, but there are reasons why they will never, or the scientific community will never, ever admit that they're Bigfoots. Because if you find one of these creatures and the government actually says those creatures are there, they live mostly, there's sightings all over the country. There's a lot of sightings here in Ohio where I'm from. But it's mostly, a lot of it is the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Northern California, Washington, Idaho, Utah. Those are lumber producing states. If they say there's a Bigfoot, number one, it's going to be automatically put on the extinction list. Number two, the first thing they're going to have to do is set aside a habitat. If they set aside that habitat, there goes your logging businesses in Oregon, California, Washington. They're not going to be able to produce any lumber because it's going to be a habitat for Bigfoot. That's why I personally think they will never say that, yes, there are unknown apes in America.
Yeah, there's been I think Charlie was talking about there was like Bigfoot DNA found or something that had like human DNA in it as well.
Yeah, I think that research was done by Melba Ketchum, I think. and they've got the DNA. But it goes back to how much habitat are they willing to set aside for an extinct animal?
Oh, do you think there's very few Bigfoots out there?
Okay, the first when all these sightings first got hot, you're looking, you would hear maybe a few stories in the 50s, a few more in the 60s, and then now the 70s, you hear more. I think there were very few, but as the population is growing, because how many reports do you hear of, a 4 foot, Bigfoot with a family? These things have family structures. They are going to reproduce. And just like anything else, over 40 or 50 years, the population is growing. That's why I think we're having more sightings. That's why you're seeing them from California to North Carolina to Montana to Mexico. The population is growing.
Yeah, I
So,
think there's definitely more than what people believe they are.
yeah, and I mean they're so elusive. You may walk by one in the woods and not even know you've walked by it,
Yeah, they're smart.
and perfectly camouflaged.
They're supposed to be really fast as well.
Well, you think of it, just okay, just to say one is, say, 9 foot tall. It's probably got a gait that's, one step could be 5 feet long. So what would look fast to us, it would take us 3 steps to their one or 4 steps to their one. Yeah, that would be, and if they really wanted to book it, take off, they could probably cover 9 or 10 feet in a single span. So, oh yeah, that's moving.
Yeah. Have you, Joe Mug, have you ever seen Bigfoot before? Or
I saw one when I was like 3 years old at Cowboy Lingo. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I was out with my uncle walking on a hiking trail, and we just came upon a juvenile one. I guess he was taking a nap on the trail, and we just kind of happened upon it, and it let off the loudest scream I've ever heard and took off on all fours up the mountain. And uh, I didn't know at the time. I forgot all about it actually because I've seen ghosts and UFOs and just all my life. I was listening to a show one day and I was like, man, how can it be that I've never seen a Bigfoot? But I started thinking and thinking back, and it's buried way back in my memory. But it came back to me that I saw one when I was like 3 or 4 years old.
that's crazy. That's awesome though.
I don't know that I would want to see one, to be honest with you. Well, just for the reason, I mean, I do a lot of hunting and fishing. I do a lot of it by myself. And if, you're out in the middle of the woods and, you come up on a creature that size that could just kill you anytime it wanted to, I don't want to think about that when I'm out there by myself.
I don't think anybody would want to run into one of them.
Oh, no. And, you've read some reports where some of them are very docile, or they are scurrying away from you, which, is typical for something that's wild. But then you get the ones that aren't so timid. Um, I read a story, well, it's been several weeks ago. I wish I would have pulled it up, but where here in Gallia County, just right up the road from me, back in the 1800s, where a man was attacked. And it's his daughter started throwing rocks at it and fought it off, and it took off into the woods. You have these reports where, somebody runs up on one, and as they're going back to their car, they know it's just out of their sight, 30, 40 yards, but it follows them all the way to their car. Or, they throw rocks or sticks, and then they start making these vocal noises, not necessarily screams or howls, but they mock other animals. Um, I can't imagine being out in the woods, especially, if you're hunting or something, and you come out, like me, generally I come out around dark. Even though that I have a weapon with me, that would be an unnerving feeling, knowing that this thing is watching you and mocking your every move, and your vision is limited. You don't know, this thing may be able to see perfect at night, so you're kind of at its mercy. And is it trying to scare you away from its territory, or is it trying to communicate with? I mean, you don't know. I mean, how would you handle that? That's creepy to me.
For sure, man. Have you two ever heard from like a witness that's ever been like abducted by an alien? You don't have to say any names, but do you both have a story of like a witness that has told you about their experience about being abducted?
Yeah,
I think we both had the same story.
We had Terry Lovelace on the show, and he's got a really fascinating story. He was abducted back in 74, I think it was.
Yeah.
And through my UFO group, I've had several stories of abductees from there too. One gentleman was a Marine. He had an implant removed from his shoulder at the VA's office, and they pretty much covered it up and like, hey, you didn't have nothing in there, and they never would let him see the X-ray stuff. And he kept fighting them. They finally let him see an X-ray, and he's like, okay, what's that? And he started having all kinds of weird things going on with his skin and stuff too. After that, he started getting like these weird, like lesions all over his skin, and he would see like little fibers, like hairs hanging out of these sores popping up on his arms. Really creepy story. He would pull some out sometimes, and it was just like a little wire. And then like a few weeks later, that sore would just disappear. It was crazy stuff.
Now, didn't he have an implant removed as well?
Yeah, Terry Lovelace had one behind his knee. He was a jogger in his younger days, and he kept feeling pain if he would reach a certain speed. It was weird too. Never bothered him in his normal everyday life, but if he would just be out jogging and reach a certain speed, it would just start killing his knee. So he finally went to the doctor to see what was going on there, and they were questioning him. He had shrapnel in his leg and stuff. And he's like, no, I've never had anything like that. But yeah, he's got a really fascinating story. You have to look that up. Terry Lovelace, good guy.
Yeah. Did he ever tell you guys like what it was like being on the ship and how long it was that he was up there? And
we never anything. We never even thought to ask him that. I had someone on the YouTube channel ask me that one day if he had any details on the ship. In his book, he don't really talk about it. He just talks about the experience itself, being radiation burns and stuff.
Now, in missing time, he was gone. I can't remember how many hours he says he was gone, but when he returned, there was time that wasn't normal. It wasn't right. He'd been gone a while.
I think it was like 4 hours. They saw the craft as a big triangle. They saw it in Devil's Den State Park
in Arkansas. Yeah.
He said it was the size of a Walmart. Just a huge triangle came over top of him and his buddy. And it was like 11 p.m. at night. And the next thing he knew, it was like 3 a.m. And the craft was sitting out in this little meadow out from them. You could see the aliens like kind of getting like soil samples and stuff, I guess, around the craft. Really strange, bizarre story.
Yeah. Do you guys know anybody that has a story about being on the ship?
I don't personally know.
The guy that was a Marine, he would get memories in his dreams and stuff. And he said that pretty much through his whole life, he had been abducted, like ever since he's 5 years old. His mom lives in the same house where he grew up. He said there's actually claw marks on her hardwood floor and around the door and stuff, his old bedroom door, of like where they had been dragging him down the hall when he was a kid, and he left marks on the hardwood floor where they were pulling him and stuff.
Was they like, does he remember seeing aliens?
I think he described them more of like the insectoid type. I don't remember him ever talking about the classic gray. I think he would say that they were all kind of tall. I've not been in touch with him for the last 3 or 4 years.
There's a great story for if you go on YouTube and look it up. It's actually an old Coast to Coast show with not George North, but Art Bell, the old Coast to Coast, with a guy named Dr. Jonathan Reed. And his story with his alien encounter is so incredible. He actually, him and his dog, just give a short story. Him and his dog was, I'm pretty sure it was in Oregon. They were just hiking and his dog started going crazy. She ran, in front of him. He couldn't see her, but she was barking. Well, he was thinking, well, she's tangled with a skunk or a raccoon or something. Well, when he finally caught up to her, he said there was this alien being who had his dog's head wrapped up and grabbed his top jaw and his lower jaw and just split it open. And he said the only thing he could think of doing, he picked up a stick and ran over and knocked it in the head. He said that half of its skull come off. And he ended up wrapping this thing up through a process. It took him hours because this thing made him deadly sick while just being around it. And he actually had it wrapped up in his freezer. And from there, his life has went to crap. But if you get a chance to look it up, it's Dr. Jonathan Reed. And to hear his story it's almost unbelievable.
Hasn't there been like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say it's out in Washington State, I believe it was.
Was it Washington? I know it was out in the Pacific Northwest there somewhere.
There's a lot of sightings around New Mexico, and ain't there something about some crashes in New Mexico that has something to do with aliens or something?
Oh yeah, there's you got the pinnacle was Roswell. That was the, I guess that would be the high water mark, I guess, because the government actually got caught up basically in the cover up when all this crash happened out in just north of Roswell, on the farm out there. And when the government come in, I guess they were saying, oh, well, it was weather balloons, or what was it, Junebug? They were dropping mannequins from hot air balloons and stuff.
And it had several stories and none of them made sense.
Yeah, but come to find out, it was actually, I guess they took the aliens that they found, there was one or two, to Dayton, Ohio. The infamous, what is it, Hangar 18, where they supposedly done all the experiments and things like that. But yeah, but you think about, you go out that way, there's a lot of top secret bases out there. Of course, Area 51 is not so top secret anymore, but back in the day, nobody knew it was there other than the local people who kept saying, hey, there's strange things going on out here. You've got White Sands, which is, the big clandestine base out there in New Mexico, White Sands, New Mexico, which it is about like Area 51. Everybody knows about it now, but there's more, of these bases around that we'll never know about. I mean, they're in mountains, they're underground, they're, now, is it our government doing tests on, certain aircrafts or what, or are they actually communicating with otherworldly beings? Well, I mean, it's hopefully one day it'll come out.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest.
It's a lot to take in. That's what me and Junebug, we talk about regularly. People call us a lot of times quacks, or we're crazy, or we're conspiracy theorists. When we see things going on that the government, like just say this coronavirus thing, if you do a little bit of research, you can see all the bullcrap in it. Well, it's not bullcrap to us because guys like me and him have been doing this for years, and all we do is research. I mean, if you do your own research, don't believe what everybody tells you, go find out for yourself. Follow the money trail, follow the paper trail, and you'll start seeing all these little things that's not making sense. And if it don't make sense, it's probably not.
yeah, like with COVID, it didn't make sense that some people were asymptomatic and some people were dying sick and some people were having cold symptoms. There's never been a virus like that.
Well, if the numbers, and I know I don't want to step on anybody's toes or make anybody mad, but I believe this virus can kill you. I believe that just because you get it, don't mean you've got a death sentence. I absolutely think the masks are a joke. They're not stopping anything. But if you look at the numbers, they don't add up. They just don't add up. I mean, when this first come out, and this is what I mean by just using your common sense and doing some research on your news medias, they would show people when this first started in China, they would show people lying dead in the street in China.
Dropping dead, walking across the
So
street.
you mean to tell me that you got this virus, you're running 100 and some fever, you can't breathe, and you're out on the street and you're just going to drop dead? Doesn't make sense, man. It just doesn't. There's 7.9 billion people in this world. There's only been 3 million people in the whole entire world die of coronavirus. That's like taking and turning on your water faucet and dripping it into a 5-gallon bucket. And out of that 5-gallon bucket, one drip spills out. Any life that has been taken by this virus is too much. But don't try to scare me to the point to where I need to take a vaccine that I'm not taking, just for the fact, and we'll get into that here in a minute. Don't tell me that I've got to wear a mask that is absolutely useless. Don't cover up doctors that are coming on TV saying this is a joke. You've got 400,000 people a year die of lung cancer from smoking. They don't say a word about that. You know why? Because they collect tax money off of it. It's a pick and choose. I mean, that's just the way it is. And you mean to tell me we've had cancer, we've had HIV, swine flu, West Nile virus, the flu, and the common cold, not to mention however many other things that you've been working on vaccines. Yeah, we've been working on vaccines all this time. So now, within a year, all these big pharma companies says, well, we got the magic cure. You're going to tell me you can do that in a year when people are dying of AIDS, Ebola, the flu, the common cold, and you can't come up with a vaccine for that? No, it don't make sense, brother. It don't make sense.
All those death numbers they would report on TV, probably 8 out of 10 of them were like car wrecks and junk like that, and they would label every one of them as cause of death, COVID.
Well, you could be hit by a car, struck by lightning, a meteor could fall on you, a shark could jump out of the Ohio River and eat you alive, and you'd die of coronavirus.
Yeah. The vaccine, I took both shots. I've took both shots, man. It didn't make me sick at all. The vaccine didn't. I can understand when people were scared of the vaccine because of what's happened with the stuff. I just took it. I got a little kids while I took it.
Well, the only thing, this is just how my mind works. If they give you that shot, it's not going to affect you today, but what's it going to do to you in 10 years? You know, that's my question. I don't trust my government enough to say when they're telling me that I have to do this, or you can't work, or you can't go out to a restaurant, or you can't do this, don't try to scare me into taking something. The best thing you can do is turn it around and tell me how this thing is really working, then let me decide on if I'm going to take it or not.
Yeah, everybody should have the freedom to do whatever they want to.
Absolutely.
And speaking of that, it's kind of funny. And not to get on, this ain't really political. This is just how the media is. Trump said that it came from Wuhan, China, and it was made in a lab. And now Joe Biden is in, And now, which they disagreed with Trump and called him a racist for saying that. And now that Joe Biden's in, they're saying that it was made in a lab in Wuhan, China. Now they're admitting it. It's
If you do the research and look it up. I'm not anybody special. I just know where to look and how to start looking at things. And here's the crazy thing. This is how I always approach something. I may have read a story a year ago and then read one tomorrow, and that dot will connect. If you look, and it's not hard, well, Google's made this difficult now because they're laying with and I'm not, like you said, I'm not getting into political, but it's no denying that the media is liberal. They try to twist and turn things to scare you to do things. The virus had a vaccine developed in 2016 before the virus even come out. Now, like you said, when Trump come on TV and was saying, take hydroxychloroquine, and people were hollering, well, he's not a doctor. He's not a doctor. How would he know? That's a drug that'll kill you. No, it won't. You know what that drug is used for? Lupus patients. They've been used on lupus patients for 25 years. That medicine will not kill you, but the media will make you think, oh, if I take this, it may kill me. If you take an aspirin, it can kill you. There's no 100% anything. But when the media come out and started hollering, well, Trump's not a doctor. You're not a doctor. Why would you listen to him? But Bill Gates, on the other hand, oh, he's the savior. Let's start listening to him. Let's listen to a guy who developed computers, which, from what I understand, he really didn't. He stole, but he's going to be the savior of the world. Don't make any sense, brother. Bill Gates is more into Agenda 201, which is population control. That's a whole nother subject.
You can get on that subject if you want to.
Agenda 201, it's not hard to find. Just do the research. It's there. He's made speeches on how to kill people to improve the population. He wants to get rid of old people. He wants to get rid of sick people. He wants to get rid of people with mental disabilities, physical challenges. Does this sound familiar? Hitler? I mean, it's Nazism.
Their whole deal, they want to get the world population to 500 million people. They're just going to kill off 2/3 of the planet.
Yep.
Because they think that the world can't support this many people. And there's plenty of free real estate.
And they're genetically modifying our food. That's why, they've got so much preservatives and they're genetically modifying our food that it's changing our DNA. Used to, you could do what was like, we always farmed and had gardens. We had what was called heirloom seeds. We would take a seed and replant it year after year after year. You can't do that now. They've modified the seeds now to where you can only get 2, possibly 3 seasons out of a seed, and that's it. They want you dependent on them. They have modified, they have put insecticides in their plants. You go out in these big major cornfields, and there's insecticides that are grown in the plant. Well, that's killing off not just certain insects, that's killing off honeybees. And if anybody knows anything about honeybees, they are pollinators. You can't have plants without pollination. I don't know if y'all can hear my dog or not, but she's going nuts.
Those genetically modified seeds, if they are growing in two separate farms, you got a farm over here that has all the Monsanto seeds. And then half a mile across the road, there's another farm with heirloom seeds. If any kind of dust or anything blows off of those Monsanto seeds and touches the heirloom seeds, it kills those crops.
Yeah. I don't know how we got onto this from Bigfoot and aliens, but I get on a soapbox sometimes. I just get going.
Oh, it's it all comes down to our government is, I think, what it comes down to. That's why we got on
I
that
agree.
subject.
I agree.
Because all of them are connected technically. All of them are connected because the government controls all of it.
That's right. And whether you're right wing or left wing, it doesn't matter to me, because the right wing and the left wing all belong to the same bird. You know, um, just because you're a conservative Republican doesn't make me trust you anymore. You know, than a liberal Democrat. Now, I tend to fall more conservative because, one, I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in less government, less taxes. I don't like today. I couldn't believe it. I seen $3 a gallon gas. I couldn't believe it. 309. I couldn't believe it today. And I just looked at my wife and said, well, you could tell it liberals in the White House, just for the fact that, we're depending on other nations when, 4 years ago we weren't.
I saw a thing last night that all the farmers, cattle and stuff, the government is paying them to just kill their cows and chickens and stuff and just push them in the river and not take them out to production or anything for people to eat.
Well, you know what that's going to cause? One, it's going to cause a beef shortage. Two, that means beef is going to go up to $30 a pound.
They've been importing beef from like Uruguay or somewhere nonsense junk when they could grow it right here.
Well, that's like during the Second World War with Roosevelt, when he paid farmers to destroy their crops. I don't know that was a bad idea back then, because the farmers were struggling. Basically, what they needed to do, they had too much food. I know that's crazy to say, but we had too much food in this country. They destroyed all those crops to raise the prices up so the farmers can make money. I don't see that happening now. I see it as, again, they're wanting us dependent on them. And how do you do that? You control their money, you control their medicine, you control their housing. That's how you control people. Just like say all these people that are on assistance, and there are a lot of people right now that aren't working who are on some kind of assistance. What if they come up to you and say, little Johnny needs this medicine, but if he don't get this shot, we're not giving you that medicine. You're going to take the shot. I mean, any normal parent would, no matter the outcome. And I feel that we're going to that point.
Yeah, it's definitely we're definitely becoming a socialist country
Every day, more and more. They're making a mockery out of our Constitution.
Yeah, they pretty much ain't the Democrats, not to get political, but the Democrats.
Good luck.
the Democrats don't support the Constitution. That's just my opinion.
No, they don't, because it's just like, I mean, well, I don't even want to get religious, but I'm a born again Christian, and a lot of these groups who are hollering, separation church and state church. The Constitution to me is kind of like the Bible. The Constitution is the way our forefathers laid out the plan for this country. And for 200 and some years, it has worked. Same with the Bible. God laid out this plan in the Bible for you to live your life the way you should and to be able to go to heaven. Okay, so Democrats they say the Constitution should be a living Constitution so they could change it. Same thing with the Bible. If a preacher is preaching out of the Bible and he's preaching the truth and it hurts your feelings because he's preaching the truth, that don't mean that Bible has to change to suit you. That means you have to change to suit the Bible. Same way with the Constitution. If our Constitution says something that makes your feelings hurt, get over it. It's the Constitution. We don't change the Constitution. We change you, or you live with it. And that's what that document is for. It's not to say we've only ratified it a few times. We don't ratify the Constitution. I'm not even going to go down that road. We can't do that, because if we do, every time somebody gets slapped in the ovaries, they're going to start hollering, well, the Constitution ain't right. This doesn't suit us. But no, the Constitution is there so people like you don't get to do what you want to do, because the rest of us don't want to do it.
Do you think that's why people have like IBS and stuff, is because they put stuff in our food?
I have no doubt. I think that's why you see 10-year-old little girls with almost fully developed breasts and things like that now, because there's so many steroids and so many preservatives and so many other things that we don't know that they put in there, and it enhances the growth, tremendously. And another thing that I've read, I don't really know, because now this is just my speculation. I think a lot of it also is the reason why we're having more autistic kids. If you look at how many autistic kids there was, say 30 years ago compared to today, it's tripled. And they keep saying, well, we don't know why. We don't know why. Well, because you're not looking in the right place. You're looking in these kids' body instead of looking at what their parents have ate and fed them kids while they're in their mama's belly.
Yeah, back in the 70s, it was like 1 in every 10,000, 100,000 cases of autism and stuff. But now it's like 1 in 10.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I have a son who's autistic. And my wife is probably just well-versed on, autistic anything. I mean, she knows it frontwards, backwards, up, down. And we've talked about it many times about why there's such a growth in not just autism. I mean, you're looking at just muscle diseases. You're looking at lupus, kids being born with lupus, Asperger's. I mean, it could go on and on. It's happening more and more. And I honestly think it's because of the stuff that we're ingesting in our bodies.
Good old government and their population control agenda.
201, Bill Gates.
Do you guys have any what day of the week is your guys' show?
We try to put one out every Wednesday, but here lately I've been falling behind on the editing of that.
It's usually once a week.
Yeah, we shoot for once a week. I think the last couple were like 9 days, but trying to get back on track.
It happens.
Yeah. Sometimes it is hard to find motivation in doing a podcast.
Yeah, because a lot of times, I found this out with the old show I was on, that you end up beating a dead horse, and it's just the same. It turns into the same show over and over and over. And you lose that motivation to, like, am I really going to talk about this again tonight?
The thing about my show is I interview singers, rappers, politicians, Bigfoot experts, now UFO researchers, and what else? Who else have I had on? Well, that's it.
Well, that's a good start, man.
And wrestlers. I've had wrestlers on as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty wide spectrum.
That is. Yeah. That really is.
I was supposed to have an NFL Super Bowl champion on, but that didn't go to plan.
Well, we've had a few big names that we thought were coming and then they'd fall through at the last minute. So it's just nature of the beast there.
Yeah, I've had a couple big names on my podcast like Joe, Ted I.
Yeah.
We're about 12 episodes into our show. We just started up a couple of months ago, but seems to be going pretty good for us. Tracy was on a show back in 2014 to 2015, I think it was, Awakening Radio.
2017. We did 2 years almost. Yeah. We had several big names on there, but it was all UFO Bigfoot community big names. But when you're a rock star in the Bigfoot world, you're still kind of like a big fish in a small pond. Not everybody knows who you are, but in that realm, they're rock stars. So to us, it was like, oh, we're getting Ken Gerhardt on tonight. That's amazing, because he's been on Discovery and History and, Travel Channel and all this other stuff and doing all this crypto stuff. And I mean, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, man. When I interviewed Joe again Tuesday, I interviewed Joe Ted this Tuesday coming up, and it'll be up Tuesday night, which I'm very excited to interview him again. But yeah, man, when it got confirmed that I was going to interview Joe, I was excited, man, because I grew up watching Dual Survival.
Oh yeah, no, I watched a few that the dude that didn't wear any shoes. What was his name?
Oh,
he was Cody. Yeah, that's a strange cat, man. He's pretty cool though.
He's definitely weird. But yeah, Joe was a really great guy, man. Joe was one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Well, sometimes, you run into these guys and they are so down to earth, man, that it's when it's over, you go, wow, that was really easy. I was expecting that to be, kind of different. But yeah, some of these guys are really super down to earth. But then again, there's one guy, I won't mention his name. He's big in the Bigfoot world. And he was just a douchebag. There's no other way of saying it, man. He was horrible.
You have a TV show?
He did.
He
did.
It was on Animal Planet, wasn't it?
I don't really remember. He was on several different shows. I know he was on the Discovery Channel several times, but I'll tell you once all this is done.
Oh yeah, man. Tell me about your guys' show, and I'm definitely gonna tell that podcast this Sunday about you guys. So because you guys are definitely know more about UFOs than me, so you guys would be great on that show.
Yeah, we appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man. Tell them about the show, Junebug.
The show is basically it started out as a book. I was going to do a biography type thing of all my stories that I've had encounters and stuff over the years. It's going to be called In Dark Places. And I wrote 3 chapters of it and I got tired and quit. I thought, man, I got to get some use out of In Dark Places though. So Tracy's been wanting to start up a new podcast and I've been wanting to do a podcast for years. So I figured, hey, why not holler at Tracy and we started her right up.
Hey, Junebug actually come on our old show once to tell a few UFO stories. That's kind of how I met Junebug, was through Chad McKenzie. And
we had a friend of a friend of a friend.
Right. So he come on our show and we interviewed him for a little while. And then we kept in touch. We'd shoot messages back and forth, or he would say, hey man, I got a report of a UFO up your way. And this back and forth. We did that for probably 2 years. And he sent me a message, said, I'm thinking about starting up this podcast. And I was like, yeah, man, that sounds pretty cool. I've been wanting to get back into it again. And then boom, here we are.
Well, yeah, man, that's a good thing. And I'll definitely put your guys' YouTube and Facebook page in the description. I know you guys are going to upload the video also on your YouTube as well.
Yes.
All right. Well, this has been Seth's Daily Podcast. And in Dark Places Collab podcast. I want to thank you guys for subscribing. Definitely like their Facebook page and subscribe to their YouTube. Both will be in the description. Y'all have a good day, and God bless.